Have you ever noticed those guys who, you know, if anything happens to their car, even if there's just merely the distant possibility that their car might get a scratch or something like that, they freak out. They have like a complete meltdown. I mean, they just go bananas, right? Has that ever happened to you? Yeah, has it ever happened to you that you start to obsess about the objects of your life and feel that they are incredibly important, you know, whatsoever that object may be? It could be your car, it could be your house, it could be, you know, some favorite guitar you have, it could be whatever the fuck, it doesn't matter. But have you noticed that, you know, sometimes you get like obsessed about objects, about the care of them. You don't want them to suffer so much as a scratch. Have you noticed that in yourself, or have you noticed that in other men, other people that you know? Have you ever asked yourself why? What's going on? What's the point of this? See, because there is a point to this. It's a very serious point, as a matter of fact. See, and it's something that I've come to suspect is a part of our industrialized society. You see, I think what's going on is that we start to feel so incredibly isolated, that we start to feel that our objects are people, crazy as that may sound. Now, a quick caveat before I continue with this topic. See, I'm not talking about children and objects. There's a different dynamic going on with children or very young people and objects. A lot of times what's going on is that, see, the child looks at an object, you know, whatsoever the object may be, this, you know, some favorite toy, whatever, it doesn't really matter. And they are very protective of it because it's theirs. And what's going on is that often as not, the child is trying to make a place for himself in the world, and his object is his, and he wants to protect it, he wants it to be safe, he wants it to be his, he wants an extension of himself in the wider world. This happens a lot of times with kids who have a lot of siblings, and the siblings, you know, run riot over the kid's objects, toys, possessions, whatnot. And the kid would just want something that's his. And that's what's going on. That's a different dynamic. I'm not talking about that dynamic. I'm talking about when you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s and 50s and older, when you obsess about the object, when you can't stand anything happening to the object. That's what I'm talking about. In that situation, what's going on is that, see, the guy feels that he has nobody or very few people in his life, and he needs to dedicate attention to something. And he dedicates the attention to his objects, to his car, to his boat, to his motorcycle, to his house, to whatever the fuck he owns. Because he doesn't have enough people in his life on which to give his attention to. This happens with women and dogs, by the way. Women, you know, their little purse puppy dogs, you know, their little chihuahuas in a little bag or whatever the fuck. And we all laugh and we say, oh, you know, the woman has a child substitute in the dog. And, you know, sometimes the woman goes so far as to say, oh, my little chihuahua is my little baby and I'm her little mommy. And you're like, Jesus Christ, that's fucking creepy, right? Yeah, because it is fucking creepy, because the woman is substituting the fucking mutt for a child. Well, it's usually the kind of party girl who likes to fuck around a lot, you know, and doesn't want to give up on the carousel. And so she gets like a little Chihuahua, Pomeranian, or whatever the fuck, to satisfy her maternal urges, right? But see, the same dynamic is going on insofar as guys are concerned, but rather than with a dog, because lots of guys have dogs, but they don't fawn over the dog. They don't have this instinct, you know, towards the dog. They care about the dog, but it's not the same. No. When they have it, they fixate it on an object that they possess. You know, their car, it happens especially with cars. And that any little scratch, and they freak the fuck out. Those guys do not have enough going on in their lives. They don't have enough people in their lives, enough relationships in their lives. I'm not talking about sexual romantic relationships. I'm talking about all kinds of relationships. Relationships with your parents, relationships with your children, with your siblings, with peers, with people who are slightly older or slightly younger, or perhaps with a younger person that the guy is mentoring. See, in the past, human beings, we had all kinds of relationships because we wandered around the savannah in a big tribe, you know. Scientists and anthropologists estimate that the average number in a tribe was about 150, because that's the number of relationships that a human brain can maintain in a stable manner over time. The average. Some people can do a few more, some a few less, depending on IQ and other factors, but that's not the point. The point is, see, we human beings, we are naturally hardwired to have at least about 100 relationships where we know the person. Not that we see them, but we know them and we've helped them out and we have a history. But in our contemporary culture, in our industrialized society, we don't have those relationships. We don't, you know. And the relationship with the guy at the 7-Eleven or the fucking supermarket, that's not a relationship. That's somebody that you see. You don't know anything about the fucker. Mm-hmm. No, I'm talking about relationships where you know him. You know him, you know his wife, you know his kids, you know his family. You've gone out hunting with him. He's proven himself to be lousy at throwing a spear, but fantastic at chopping up the animal once the woolly mammoth has been brought down. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you know him. You know him. You know him, and you've seen him in moments of happiness and in moments of stress. And those kinds of relationships, we're not experiencing them anymore. Huh? And because of it, because of that lack, we need to fixate our attention on something, and we fall on objects. On our car, and we're worried about the car. We don't want to scratch on it. And it's not because we're trying to maintain the car. What's going on, of course, is that, see, it's the same feeling that we would have for a friend, that we would have for a colleague, for somebody who's in our social life. We worry about them. We don't worry about them a lot. We know that they can take care of themselves, but we worry about them. We worry about them, and we want them to be in good health and maintain. And since we don't have those relationships, we fixate on the objects. And I'm guilty of this myself. Yeah, especially when I was younger. I mean, like in my 20s and so forth. I would really, really obsess about objects that I possessed. And I'd freak out whenever they suffered even minimal damage. And it got to a point one time that I thought to myself, you know, what's going on? This is not normal. And slowly, I've come to the conclusions that I'm telling you now. It's because there aren't enough relationships in a person's life. For me, there weren't at that time. I had very few relationships, even though I was successful. But the nature of my work and the nature of my success was such that I just didn't have that many relationships. And so I was just in dire straits. Dire straits because there were not enough people in my life, and because of that, I would obsess about objects. Objects of different sorts. I mean, I'm worried about my car, which is stupid. It's just a fucking car. You know, if it gets scratched up, big fucking deal. If it gets banged up, you know, you can take it to the place to fix it, and they'll fix it, and you know, big fucking deal. But I obsess about this shit. And I'd obsess about the car, and I'd obsess about all kinds of stupid shit. And now I deeply regret that. But now I understand it, and that's why I'm telling you. If you start obsessing about objects, if you do obsess about objects, if you worry about them disproportionately, if you think that the object is so important, then you have to stop. Stop and realize that there's something wrong with you, okay? Because it's not normal to obsess about objects. It's perfectly normal to want an object that you possess to be in good maintenance and good repair, to function properly. And it's perfectly all right to want it to look nice. I mean, that's the reason you take your car to the car wash, for instance. I mean, you don't really need to wash the car now, do you? I mean, the dirt on it is not, you know, creating such aerodynamic drag that, you know, you're spending twice as much on fucking gasoline. No, of course not, okay? You take the car to the car wash because you want it to look pretty, you know, presentable. You're not trying to impress anybody, you just prefer to have it clean. And that's perfectly normal and perfectly reasonable, and no argument on my part. That's not the issue. The issue is when you start obsessing about the object. And you're not like thinking about it all the time, like, oh, my precious. No. But you're worried about it. You're worried that, you know, no, I don't want it to get scratched, man. I don't want the boat to fuck up. You see what I'm saying? You got to realize when that's happening. When that's happening to you. And you got to understand the source of it. And you have to look in at yourself. And that's the hardest part.